Interesting angle that we really hadn't gotten to yet today, Nilay, and that is the ancillary effect on his other businesses.
Yeah, look, Twitter is a global platform. I think we all remember the highs of 2010 when we thought social media would bring democracy to every corner of the world. That was very idealistic. I really hoped that would happen. It didn't happen. Why didn't that happen? Countries around the world realize they have their own laws. Many of them do not have a First Amendment like the United States has. They have other kinds of speech restrictions, and they made sure that social media companies followed their laws. So if you think you can buy Twitter and use it to export the American First Amendment around the world in some way, you're quickly going to discover that those companies, the other countries, have strong opinions about what you can say in those countries in a way the United States is prohibited from having. And then you've got Tesla and SpaceX trying to expand in those markets. That's just an enormous risk for Tesla shareholders in particular.
Yeah, it's a good point, Nilay. Not everyone around the world believes in free speech the same way that America does, and even here it's very divided. Mark Cuban brought up this idea of potential foreign ownership, saying that why wouldn't foreign money come in and buy Twitter for the influence that it brings? Now, obviously, that would have a tough time getting past the regulators, but could that source potentially be obscured? Is that sort of a real fear that investors could be looking at right now?
I don't know if investors should be afraid of that as much as the United States government and everybody in this country who cares about free speech. The other thing I would say just very directly to the CNBC audience in particular is maybe you think that there's a problem with free speech on social networks. The answer is definitely not giving more power to one guy. The answer is market competition. And to say that he can just fix it, that he can unlock Twitter's potential by doing things that no company can do on a global scale himself is just risky. And that creates risk downstream from Twitter to every other company that a lot of people bet on, in particular Tesla, which has to expand in China. And China is going to brook no dissent from its speech policies from anyone, and they will retaliate against his companies. So I just think that the amount of risk that is being created downstream from, I think I should just buy Twitter, is extraordinarily high. And it's not just Twitter shareholders that should be concerned. I think it really is Tesla shareholders.
Now, we talked about risk and the concerns when it comes to Elon Musk, when it comes to Tesla shareholders, Twitter shareholders. There's one group we haven't talked much about, and that's Twitter employees. I see massive risk for them right here. If Elon Musk gets it, it seems to me like he's going to cut the headcount there, right? Like if he's not going to rely on advertising, there's a lot of people who he doesn't need. There are a lot of costs that he's probably going to want to get rid of if he's getting rid of revenue. But then if he doesn't get it, right, and the stock price tanks, current management is going to be under pressure to cut as well. And so how are they going to run this company under either scenario? Isn't that tough in this tight labor market, Eli?
I absolutely think so. I also think that if you take a company like Twitter private and you take equity compensation off the table for employees, there's a lot of money in the Valley right now going to a lot of different things. There's a lot of potentially easy upside in crypto startups for a lot of engineers who are very seasoned at building out a community product, which is what crypto kind of prides itself on being. So how do you even manage the brain drain if you no longer have kind of your best compensation tool available as a private company? I don't know how you manage costs if you're cutting, but then you have to increase salaries to just match the upside of another public company that's offering equity as compensation. That just seems extraordinarily challenging. Also, fundamentally, what is Twitter's asset? It is the network of people that use it, right? It's the network effect of Twitter. Everyone uses it. You buy it, you take it public, you start making dramatic changes to how it works, you start charging for it, suddenly you might lose that network. That network is not necessarily durable. So I think there's just a lot of risk there for employees. Like, do you want to work on a thing that everyone uses, or do you want to work on a paid service that is getting smaller at potentially lower compensation?